Good evening, everyone. Now, without going into the formalities of thanking the branch and everything, but I'll directly go with what is the theme of this discussion today. See, when this entire program was getting curated, at that point in time, a discussion came to me that, and Ashwin Bhai Bhawala has contacted me that why we cannot have some session wherein what precautions a chartered accountant should take while doing his duties, while discharging his duties or responsibilities which is encasted on him under various laws. Can we have some sort of session wherein the department is taking actions against the taxpayers? Can a chartered accountant face the heat of those actions? And therefore, it was thought of that we need to have a panel discussion in spite of having a session wherein one speaker will come and deliberate. It is very important to have multiple speakers, multiple experts of their own fields. So we have a panel of three eminent, I would say, stalwarts of this profession. All are chartered accountants. Few are practicing now as an advocate, but all are chartered accountants. That is the best thing in this panel, so that we can understand what a chartered accountant is duty bound to do and what all responsibilities he has and how he can take the precaution, how he can take the shelter of his own deeds and get rid of the allegations or the problems which he may face or he is already facing. Because of some of our professional brothers who have been facing these issues time and again in last few months, this was an important and apt topic that we have thought upon. And our panelists, as we all are aware of, need no introduction. A designated senior advocate of Honorable Gujarat High Court, Tushar sir. Epitome of knowledge, I would say, Jatin Christopher sir. And Master in Corporate Law and IBC Law, Nipun Singhvi ji. I will not say sir. I take that liberty. आप इस पे बात कर रहे थे. What is liberty all about? So, the first question that comes to my mind, although we have prepared few list of the questionnaire, but I will start with one very important question, which we were discussing just few minutes back, and that question is, I will pose this question before Jatin sir. I will start with Jatin bhai. That nowadays what is happening is there are a lot of investigation which is going on, may it be GST, may it be corporate law, may it be income tax, wherein the departmental officers are issuing summons to us. While issuing those summons, they are getting statements recorded, and those statements are recorded on oath. So now, there are two ways, or rather I would say two questions which I am willing to, requesting you to address. One is, what is the probative value of those statements on oath which is being recorded by those officers if it is recorded by a proprietor, a statement of a proprietor? And second, in case that proprietor says that, sir, I am not aware of anything, whatever has been done, whatever has been advised, it is acted by me on advice of a professional, let's say a chartered accountant. So that is the first question I would wish to start with.
Thank you, Avinash ji. Good evening, friends. When we speak about statements on oath in GST under section 70, we have to read it along with 136. There are 5 situations provided in 136 to admit statements made on oath as to their relevancy for prosecution. To state something truthfully is not the same as saying to state something accurately. Secondly, the competence of the person is directly connected with the accuracy of the statement. Facts are different from interpretation of facts. Facts are those that are either undisputed or have a mountain of evidence to substantiate them. Interpretation of facts is to use that information and come to a conclusion however simple the conclusion might be or complicated the question might be, when it comes into the realm of interpretation of facts, it is opinion. One person's opinion cannot implicate another person. So a taxpayer is welcome to make any statement. I would consider statement on oath the weakest quality of evidence. Investigation should lead to confession. Confession should not establish the entire investigation. So keeping these parameters in mind, I would only caution what is stated on oath cannot be, should not be assumed to be absolute truth. The vast difference between these. So we have to be cautious. Something may have been stated unless what has been stated is established to be reliable after cross-examination. Nothing stated has legs to stand on, especially when something stated is inculpatory to establish somebody's guilt, then that needs to be established with further corroborative evidence. I'll just leave with one thought. Our books of accounts are unreliable. Section 34 of evidence law says our books of accounts, group 1 wale, our books of accounts are unreliable unless it is supported by corroborative evidence. So please, let's not give statements recorded on oath such high regard as if to say that that's the end of investigation. That's just the beginning of investigation.
So therefore, it brings me to the next query, which I would like to, like Tushar bhai to please address. One is the statement of the proprietor. What happens in case of a statement given by a third party? If a third party records a statement which is against, let's say, a chartered accountant or against the taxpayer, what is the value of that? What is the probative value of such statement?
So, you are asking about the probative value of a third party statement. Okay. Look, statements, let me greet everyone. Good evening, everyone. Let me point out that what are the types of statements which are there. One is a statement which is given by somebody, namely an SSC, when he is called upon by the department to say something. It could be a confession, it could be a statement which is self-incriminatory, or it could be a statement merely confirming a particular transaction, a third-party transaction. Insofar as third party is concerned, third party might have given certain statements which are in a way causing prejudice to the SSC in question. Now, what is the evidentiary value insofar as these kinds of statements are concerned? Look, before we decide as to what is the evidentiary value, under what circumstances and in what manner the statements are recorded, that is very material. So, you will have to look at the section or the provisions of the act under which the statements in questions are recorded. In each act, each fiscal statute will have different set of provisions. If we start with the Income Tax Act, there are two sections broadly under which statement of a person could be recorded. One is under 132(4), that is a search-related statement, which is always under oath. Second statement is under section 133, which is during the course of a survey, where the administration of the oath is not there. And there is a legal distinction between the two. Under the Income Tax Act, the law is well settled as regards the binding effect or evidentiary value of a statement. Insofar as a proprietor statement is concerned, a survey statement will have a less evidentiary value because there is no oath. And that doesn't mean, mind you, a license to lie on the statement. But nonetheless, in absence of there being any oath, those statements have a slightly lesser degree of evidentiary value. And Supreme Court, in the case of Kader Khan, has beautifully explained this distinction. Supreme Court, in the case of 300 and ITR, 300 ITR 157, wherein they confirm the Madras High Court judgment, 352 ITR 480, wherein they explain this distinction between a survey statement and a search statement. Therefore, a statement under the Income Tax Act will have a variation in so far as the evidentiary value is concerned. Moreover, under the Income Tax Act, these statements are not recorded under a provision wherein there is a deeming fiction which says that these statements would be deemed to be, presumed to be recorded by way of a judicial proceedings. In other words, therefore, these statements again will have a less evidentiary value because they are not recorded under judicial proceedings. Broadly under CRPC Act, there are two kinds of statement. One is a statement recorded in the police custody under section 161, signed, not to be signed under 162. A police custody statement, Article 20 says that those statements, if at all they are self-incriminatory, they are not at all binding on the deponent. And therefore, those statements are required to be ignored. Whereas under CRPC section 164, a statement which is recorded before a judicial magistrate, because it's a judicial magistrate, he is not a police officer, those statements have a higher degree of binding value, they have a higher degree of evidentiary value. Those statements are known as judicial statements. Now, Income Tax Act does not have such an enabling provision whereby they say that these statements would be treated as judicial statements, and therefore they have lesser degree of binding effect, evidentiary value. Now, going to the GST Act, Jatin Bhai has already clarified that section 70, the statements are recorded. However, under section 70 itself, it says that these statements would be presumed to be recorded by way of a judicial proceedings. And therefore, they would become at par with 164 statement, 164 of CRPC statement. And therefore, they carry a lot of higher evidentiary value because those statements cannot be considered or presumed to be given under a stress or duress. The distinction is very clear. Law says that whenever a statement is recorded in a police custody, we all know how police record the statement. They basically extract information out of you. Most of the time, more often than not, it is not voluntary information. Whereas before the judicial magistrate, you have on your own volition, on your own self, you go and record the statement. That is known as judicial confession also. Therefore, those statements are considered to be presumed to be a voluntary statement. Now, the GST law says that these are all considered to be a judicial proceedings, and therefore the law presumes that these are all voluntary statements. The reason is, here the law says because the adjudicating authority acts both as a prosecutor, as an investigator, as well as a judge when they frame a particular order. Therefore, the law says that these are to be presumed to be judicial proceedings. I go one step further. I go under the, let's say, PML Act. Under the PML Act, section 50, subclause 2 says that any statement which is recorded in the custody, again would be considered as a judicial proceedings. So those statements again will have a different binding effect. Under the Customs Act, section 108, the statements again are considered to be as a judicial proceedings. Therefore, those are again having a binding effect. Therefore, we'll have to look at in what context, in what manner, under which section, under which provision the statements are recorded. Depending upon that, the evidentiary value would be found out. Now coming to, let's say it's a proprietor statement. It's a statement given by a self. I had gone before the GST authority. They asked me question that what you have to say on these bills. At the end of the day, supposing if I say that these are bogus bills and I have entered into this bogus billing transaction and therefore I have availed wrong ITC. If that is the statement which is given before the authority, does it become a binding statement? The answer is, you can always clarify the statement at a later stage. Even if it is a judicial proceedings, the law says that the moment you say that these statements are not to be relied upon, all you need to do is you need to file an affidavit within a reasonable period of time. The law on the issue is discussed in the case of Vinod Solanki. It's a very well-known judgment of the Supreme Court. I'll give the citation of Vinod Solanki. It is 233 ELT 157, wherein the law which is laid down is that even a statement which is given, a voluntary statement, can always be retracted, provided, of course, A, the retraction happens in a reasonable time, and B, the retraction is substantiated by adducing necessary evidences on record, wherein you take a contradictory position. Therefore, a statement, again, is not an evidence, and I agree with Jatin Bhai that that is something which is not to be believed. A third-party statement. What is the remedy for a third-party statement? Because that, the deponent of a statement is not someone who is otherwise known to me. What I can do is I can ask for a cross-examination of that third-party statement, because the statement itself is not an evidence. The statement only makes certain averments. That's the perception of the deponent of that statement. And therefore, those statements or the findings flowing from the statement are required to be substantiated independently. So what do? I call upon that person and I try to cross-examine him. Supposing someone has made an allegation against me that this gentleman has never purchased any material from me. He has only entered into a billing transaction whereby he gave me the check towards the supplies and he received cash in return. And therefore, the transaction is completely a fake transaction. If that is the allegation against me, which is flowing from a statement of the third party, I would go and cross-examine that person, that on what basis you have entered into this transaction, what are your evidences for the purpose of making this allegation, where is the proof that you have given me the cash, on what day, at what place we met, and in what manner we exchanged cash, who was the intermediary, did you call me, do you have any mobile record, so as to establish the averment that there is something which is not recorded in the books of accounts, but which has happened over and above it. So these are the kinds of inquiries or cross-examination which I would do in order to reach to the root of the matter and try to dislodge the finding which is flowing, which is against me, by reading the statement, the deed judgment. Insofar as cross-examination is concerned, is Andaman Timbers 2015 62taxman.com, page 3, Supreme Court, and our own Gujarat High Court judgment in the case of Principal CIT versus Chartered Speed Private Limited, tax appeal number 126 of 2015. In fact, we have a lead judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of Kishanchand Chelaram. It's a very old judgment, 125 ITR 713, wherein the view that is taken is that anything which is to be used against an SSC, a proper opportunity under the principles of natural justice is required to be given. So a statement per se is, as Jatin Bhai has rightly said, is just the beginning. But it can end being a evidence against you, provided you do not follow the correct procedure in law. If you follow the correct procedure in law, you can avoid the unnecessary or unpleasant findings which flow from a statement. Thank you, Avinash.
In continuation with this, Nipun Bhai, if a statement is getting recorded, let's say in GST or in income tax, whether that statement can further be borrowed
Yes,
by any other
I
authorities against the deponent?
Though Tushar Bhai has covered extensively, I would just like to add that this particular statements can be used by other authorities also to prosecute under their respective law. Like we were just discussing, let's say there is a fake billing case and let's say a company is used, then that company would also become a party. Now that will also entail that the Companies Act provisions are attracted, and again the fraud under 447 may get attracted. So it is possible that more than one law, there is an action, as Jatin Bhai said, there is an action, but that action can attract different offenses under different law. So probably a fake billing case may also attract GST, may also attract IPC, may also attract Companies Act. Now, what should be our preparedness, or something like this which we have an apprehension that there could be an arrest or there could be a summoning and thereafter recording the statement. Nowadays it's a trend that they are arresting the professionals also. So what should be our preparedness insofar as I understand? All these special laws borrow their procedure from CRPC, as Tushar Bhai rightly said. Now 41A CRPC is something which everybody should know, and I think this is the only option available, that we go before the court before we have an apprehension and take an anticipatory bail. And normally the courts are giving direction that without issuing a notice under 41A CRPC, this person should not be arrested. And normally 7 days, 10 days time is given, relying on the Anish Kumar judgment. Also, this would apply only when the imprisonment which is possible under that particular section is 7 years or less. It will not apply when it is beyond. So if there is a complicated case, we will have to be more prepared, because nowadays probably even if we have acted in a professional capacity, the laws are such that they are presuming that we are also a party to it. So to defend ourselves in a plausible manner, it would be better that if there is an apprehension. So one of my friend, again from Surat only, he shared a news clipping saying that one of his client was caught in fake billing. So what should I do as an auditor if I have audited the accounts? The first thing is to immediately withdraw the audit report. Just like we saw the Byju's case, immediately withdraw your report and inform the authorities that please do not rely more, because I have come to know some fraud has occurred, and therefore it is not to be placed reliant on. So that is very important, that our reliance should not be there, and as a measure we should take always an anticipatory bail if we are apprehending that we might have exchanged some communication which obviously in our professional capacity would be necessary to do the work of a client.
Jatin bhai, there is no protection against self-incrimination in GST. So therefore, what approach as per you, is possible in addressing the proceedings? And can a chartered accountant be asked to give confession against his client?
See, it is up to the IO as to what methods they want to follow to bring home the allegations against the taxpayer and all other accomplices that they want to identify. But my sense is that the statement alone cannot be the basis of any allegation that some mischief has been carried out. I'll just lay before you 4 ingredients that I want to identify regarding evasion of tax. See, every non-payment of tax does not automatically become evasion of tax, and evasion of tax is necessary to invoke jurisdiction under 67. Notice must follow under 74. So I will say 4 things here. 1, there must be non-payment of tax. 2, there must be knowledge of liability. 3, there must be active concealment. 4, there must be gains from this activity. If these 4 aspects don't exist and these 4 aspects are not brought out in the investigation, then that investigation has failed. They may say many things. Please be very careful. Today in GST, the trend is to just throw one suspicion in the air. Taxpayer or the consultant is completing the incomplete investigation. 2A is not matching 3B, so therefore it is fake billing. Taxpayer is prepared to do all the investigation that is left incomplete by revenue. So I would sense that please examine what is the allegation. Based on the allegation, take a stand. The stand is not detailed justification. The stand is, I agree, I don't agree. Why you don't agree is not relevant. If when student has failed in the exam, you should not ask him how many marks he got, because the result is not going to change whether he got 9 or 39. So therefore, take a stand whether you agree or you don't agree. Once a stand is taken, it is for revenue now to overcome that hurdle. Very often what happens, I've seen, is the stand itself is not taken. So therefore, please consider that when this investigation is being proceeded, enormous support of lies is taken. Enormous support of lies is taken. Everybody has already paid, you are the last person. Everybody has already admitted, you are the last person to admit. Please agree, otherwise there will be this consequence, there is that consequence. I'll only leave one thought on this question for members to consider. The most shameless thing for an officer is to go back with an arrest warrant without executing it. So anyone who says that they will arrest you, you can be sure that there is no warrant issued. And anyone who's got a warrant will never disclose to the person that he will be placed under arrest. So please be able to discern and see behind these smoke screens used to establish their case. Please be very careful about that.
Tushar sir, just in continuation with this, already that has been touched upon, but I am again asking this, that statements we have covered, but what about the information? Whether any information which is flowing from any, let's say third-party information or any information which is being flown in, can those informations be relied upon by the officers and the actions can be taken on the basis of those informations?
Avinash bhai, information, we are living in the era of information sharing. When I was studying, during those days, exchange of information between various agencies was something which was not done. Today we are living in an era where information is very easily shared. In fact, very soon we'll have a combined portal. That is what we keep reading, that like in the army, there is a one chief for all the three wings of army. We are going to have only one board and one chairman for both the direct indirect taxes wings. So very soon a time would come shortly that the distinction between the direct taxes, indirect taxes, all this would disappear. And everything would become one financial pool wherein the information would be fetched by various authorities based on the requirements. So now to presume that information of one authority would not be shared with another is something which is a foolish act. So supposing we have a search under the Income Tax Act, and wherein a diary is found out, wherein unaccounted turnover is mentioned. I would say that, sir, you disclose the profit because person is in the business of scrap. Margins are 1 or 2%. I can very easily establish that there are only 1% margin, 100 crore turnover, pay 1 crore tax and be done away with it, because there is no harm in paying tax on 1 crore rupee profit. However, when I look at information from the point of view of GST, I am looking at a very high figure, because 100 crore turnover, you have GST of 18%. So I'm looking at 18% GST without ITC, because all my purchases are in cash, because these are all transactions which are done outside the books of accounts. So then the entire characteristics of that disclosure would undergo a change, because today I can afford to do because there is no sharing of information, and therefore it is all the more important that we keep in mind this information sharing concepts. So what is the consequence? Let's say from this very example, is it obligatory on the part of the other authority to take cognizance of the information found from one agency? The very same example, Income Tax Authority finding unaccounted trades, profit of 1 crore being deduced from those newspapers. Can I bodily lift that information and use it for the purpose of GST? Or in other words, if I can use the phraseology in the question, that can the officer under the GST Act can be said to have a reason to believe that there is an escapement of GST turnover, the taxable supplies, vis-a-vis this particular transaction? Then again my answer is no. It cannot be that this information found during the course of the income tax inquiry, bodily lifted, placed it in a GST assessment, and directly demand of 18 crore is raised. Here, it could be the beginning point of an inquiry. It could be the beginning of the investigation. It can never be the conclusion. Nobody can say that based on these documents, you have made a supply, taxable supply of 18 crore, that is 100 crore, 18% tax, and therefore you pay 18 crore taxes immediately without having to do anything. That is not the idea. Idea is, yes, this could be the beginning point. However, GST authorities in such a case will have to establish that there was a supply of goods, number one, there was a taxable supply of goods, and so percentage of taxes were evaded. Unless we do that, we cannot do it. We have a direct judgment of Gujarat High Court on this issue, wherein 2018 95 taxman.com 13. It was a reverse case wherein there was a search by the excise department. Excise department found out certain clandestine removal of goods. Based on that, they estimated certain turnover, and based on that, income tax department straightway made an addition based on that turnover. And case before the Gujarat High Court is that income tax department, without carrying out its own independent investigation, can they bodily lift this information from GST or excise department? Gujarat High Court said that no, this could be the beginning. However, this by itself is not an end of the investigation. You have to carry out your independent examination, evidences, inquiries, and then ultimately you can reach to the very same conclusion, but you cannot borrow the investigation of another agency. There is a judgment of Delhi Tribunal also under the Central Excise Act. CCE versus Deluxe Enterprise 22 STR 203, wherein there was a raid at someone who was selling SIM cards and cash of 4 lakhs was found out under the Income Tax Act. Income tax, based on that cash of 4 lakhs, decided that you must have generated this cash of 4 lakhs outside the books of accounts by selling SIM cards in cash. Central Excise Department came into action, namely the service tax authorities, and they estimated that in order to generate 4 lakh worth of cash, you would have made a sales of extrapolation of so and so crores. And ultimately the addition was made. Delhi tribunal said that unless you establish a taxable supplies of services in the form of sale of SIM cards, there is no question of estimating any turnover. We also have the judgment of, again, Delhi tribunal, Sahil Study Circle 2017 52 STR 433, wherein again the view is that you cannot, without evidences, you cannot make any evidences. So therefore, to summarize, yes, material, evidence, all this information found from another agency's search or another agency's actions can certainly be used for the purpose of making addition vis-a-vis the other agency. However, that by itself is not conclusive. Independent inquiries, investigation are required to be carried out, and ultimately addition may or may not be made on the basis of the merits of those additions, not merely because some material is found during the course of some search by a different agency cannot be used as such for the purpose of making the addition. Over to you, Arjun.
Right, sir. So, Nipun bhai, while giving certain services to our clients, the chartered accountant finds or determines that there is some instance of any fraud. So, what he should be taking precaution of, whether he is bound to report, if yes, what does the code of ethics cast a duty on him? So the question is, while conducting any assignment, you came to know that there is some fraud which has been conducted by this, which has been done by this particular kind. So whether I should report this? Is there any consequence which can fall back on a chartered accountant who is not reporting, or let's say who is not addressing that particular issue? Or withdrawing from that assignment can be one of the solutions.
I think, sir, you have asked me everything, whatever we have learned in the CA course. It's very difficult, actually, after almost 15 years, when I was going back and reading the Code of Ethics. Any idea now how many Code of Ethics are there? How many books are there? Any recent CA? Only 3 books are there. And it's volume 1, volume 2 and volume 3. When we passed, it was only 1 book. Now this volume 1, 2, 3 is actually copy pasted, as sir rightly used the word, body lifted from IFAC. So IFAC is actually in international perspective. Now what they are saying, what Code of Ethics is saying is very, in fact, very ambiguous. And if we go by Code of Ethics, I don't know how many of us will have clients. Code of Ethics now says that suppose there is some non-compliance, and I probably, you must be having NOCLAR sessions here, non-compliance of laws and regulations, which was recently introduced. It is actually a fallout of this Code of Ethics, which says that if there is any non-compliance of any law or regulation, in fact, truly speaking, and sir will pardon me, that if there is any non-compliance of law, we even including senior advocates will not know which law is non-compliant, because there are so many laws in India. But expecting an auditor or a chartered accountant, now I will not use the word auditor because now Code of Ethics says a chartered accountant, whether he is into practice, whether he is in service, whether he is into business, and probably even when we are sitting here as a member of ICAI, everybody is included. They say that if we come across some non-compliance of laws and regulations, it is our duty, obviously, to say no to the client, not to indulge in whatever activity it is, maybe money laundering, maybe fraud, maybe benami, anything. But it also casts a duty to inform the regulator, appropriate regulator, that yes, I have come across this. Now, the first question which obviously everybody would be asking, what is the importance of client attorney privileged communication, which we were protected in the erstwhile code of ethics. Our CA Act also said that we cannot divulge the information. But now the new code of ethics says if there is a crime against the state, we have to report it to the regulator. In fact, they go a step ahead, and similar to what is there in Companies Act 143 subsection 12, we have to report a fraud even if there is no fraud, a suspected fraud is there. So if we go by the new code of ethics, it says that if we come across any offense under any law, it is our duty to report it if suppose we are an auditor, and also to inform the appropriate regulator. And when I went deep into this, why this particular thing has come, it is because of that ILFS case where the auditor was not reporting the non-compliance of NBFC to the Reserve Bank of India. Now they are specifically said to the regulator. Now suppose if it is a listed company, probably SEBI. If it's an NBFC, it would be RBI. But Christopher sir asked me a very pertinent question. Sir, if there is some tax evasion, whether we will have to go and inform the GST department. And I am still searching for the answer because it's not very clear whether we will be going and informing the department that one of the client has probably shown us something which probably is not advised by us. So this is the catch point in code of ethics, which I understand that we have to be now too much vigilant. As far as the second part, PMLA is concerned, I think we had a session on PMLA in Surat branch itself. They have now casted a responsibility of reporting. In the reporting entity concept, we have to report any transaction which is falling under PMLA and which according to us is an act of money laundering. But reporting entity requirement is very specific, very narrow. It does not ask us to investigate into the transaction. It only says A, B, C, D transactions. If client has entered, we have to report it. But again, according to me, both the notifications, except incorporation of company and bringing finances for the company through IPO or maybe FPO, other clauses which they have written, even otherwise as a chartered accountant, we are not allowed to do, like buying immovable property on behalf of client. We otherwise also are not permitted by our institute code of ethics to do it. So therefore, we can't do it. It says you cannot operate bank account on behalf of your client. So correctly, our code of ethics is very clear. They say if you are managing money on behalf of your client, so even otherwise we can be only advisor, we cannot get into the shoes of the client. So more or less the suggestions under PMLA, as of now it is reporting entity, we don't know 2 years down the line what they will put us. But today the reporting requirement is only there. We need not investigate, but we need to report if we come across such an offense. But yes, as an auditor, now the onus is more. As a person in practice, so they have given an example in code of ethics that suppose we are a CFO of a company and we come to know of some money laundering happening in the company, then we have to inform the regulator. Then third example they have given is of an auditor. If he comes to know some non-compliance of laws and he is not able to get the evidences, he has to immediately withdraw from the engagement. And I think probably that is the reason why in Byju's Deloitte has withdrawn.
Jatin sir, just in continuation with this, now we came to know about this fraud. Generally what is happening is department is calling the client for some recording of a statement. He is recording or he is absconding whatever happens. We have found certain instances wherein now the department is also searching a chartered accountant's office, or he is summoning a chartered accountant, asking him to come, since I have signed the audited balance sheets and the reports, to come and record the statement or give the witness against the fraud which was committed by the client on which or for which I was the auditor. Are we bound to do that, or can we be compelled to do that?
See, once a summons is issued, we have to attend. As chartered accountants, we should be more mindful of the responsibility to attend to a summons, but once we go there, we should not fulfill the investigative aspirations of the investigating officer. We should limit our statements to what information we have pertaining to the audit. For example, the questions could be, other income appearing in the financials, is it from supply or not? Now look at this question. It has so many aspects to it. Other income may arise out of a supply, or it could be merely creditors written back, it could be provisions reversed, it could be previous year's discount that is received today which I can't reduce from inventory. There are many, many reasons. We are subject matter experts as auditors in accountancy. To that limited extent, I think we are competent to make statements. The conclusions to be drawn from that information is up to the investigating officer. So I would encourage, if summoned, as a professional, we should not be seen running away from summons. But when we do attend, we have to keep in mind this enthusiasm to offer a lot of information sometimes get the better of a person. Confine it to your role as auditor, give information truthfully to the extent we are capable. We should not venture into areas that lie beyond our individual skills.
Tushar sir, now during the course of an income tax search or maybe a PMLA investigations, there are certain facts which are admitted by the taxpayer, by the person. Does it impact or does it have any impact so far as GST is concerned? Can it be like, you have already touched it, but I have come across some instances wherein a GST, in case of a GST proceeding, a reversal was made, accepting that this was a credit which was not allowable to me. I am taking it back or reversing it along with interest, but under protest. Now income tax has directly added it in my income, passed the order. Whether it is sustainable and vice versa.
Yes, Avinash bhai. Already I have addressed this issue from one perspective, one point of view, and that is if some information material which is found from one search, then whether it can be used for the purpose of making adjustments under the another section or another agency. Let me put it this way, that supposing there is an admission, because the question that you have posed for me is there is an admission of certain facts under one statute. Will it have any impact insofar as adjudication of under the other sections? More particularly, income tax, PMLA, Customs Act, certain facts are admitted, and what is the impact insofar as GST is concerned? Let us take an example that in an income tax search, I admit an undisclosed income. I am a builder. I admit an undisclosed income of, let's say, 50 crore. I say that I have accepted on money for the purpose of selling my real estate properties, and that on money I am ready to offer as and by way of my current year's income. Now that is an acceptance. I have not gone back on that acceptance. I have accepted and honored that, incorporated that money into my return of income. Now having accepted a particular position, can I take a contrary stand under the GST Act? That is the question. Again, I go back to the nature of the disclosure. When I say that I have made a disclosure of 50 crore rupee, did I confess that I have entered into a trading transaction, or I have entered into a transaction where a supply of construction has taken place? There is supply of, because for the purpose, GST is a supply-based taxation system where supply could be of goods or services, and based on the supply, value determined and the tax is levied on that. Therefore, one will have to look at the position which is taken vis-a-vis a particular act. If that position can be used for the purpose of reaching to a definite finding that there is a supply of any taxable goods or services, then certainly that by itself would bind me, and I would be precluded from taking a contrary position. Because I cannot take a stand, one stand for income tax, one stand for GST, another stand for PMLA. I need to have consistency, and authorities are certainly going to ask me that, sir, if you are taking such a contradictory stand, at least you would be prosecuted in one of the sections, because then there is a falsity on my part. And therefore, one will have to look at the material or the confession which is being made. If the confession is to the effect that which would have ultimately impact on calculating the taxable supplies, then certainly GST authorities will take cognizance of the same. However, in the given example, one might argue that, sir, these are the transactions which are not from a GST supply taxable transaction. Supposing I am in the business of construction of properties, I say that, sir, I have sold a commercial property after the completion certificate was issued. And therefore, that 50 crore which I have offered under income tax is nothing but the money which I received after completion certificate was received, after BU was received, and therefore not chargeable to GST. Then there is no contradiction between the two sections, between the two provisions. And therefore, GST authorities cannot make any adjustment in my recorded GST turnover. However, having said that, can the authorities thereafter make an estimate? Thereafter, they can say that because under the Income Tax Act, you have said that you have accepted 50 crore rupees as a on money, you are in the habit of accepting on money, and therefore you would certainly have accepted certain on money even where GST was leviable, and therefore we'll presume, because business practice would remain the same, we would presume that there is some on money acceptance on your part which is liable to be taxed under GST, and therefore we'll presume the taxable turnover so as to tax you under GST. There the position of law is very clear that unless there is a valid reason to estimate, the lead judgment is H.M. Yusuf Ali, 90 ITR 271 of the Supreme Court, wherein the state sales tax authorities, based on 19 days turnover which was found during the course of the search, in a best assessment judgment, estimated the turnover for the entire year. And in that context, Supreme Court said that it is always open to the authorities to estimate the turnover based on the documents are found, provided, number one, that the estimate is reasonable, logical, and there are no mala fides involved insofar as that estimation process is concerned. Therefore, to presume something is permissible. However, in the facts of this case, there is no material which is available which would go to show that I have accepted any on money wherein GST was leviable, where the GST taxable supply was involved. And therefore, one can say that this is not a reasonable or a logical estimation. And therefore, to that extent, you cannot use the income tax information so as to make estimation insofar as GST is concerned. Even if there is a confession on my part, you establish the GST connection, then probably you are allowed to make an estimate. So therefore, it would depend on the facts of each case. But if you ask for my answer in one sentence, that can this material or the accepted facts in income tax, PMLA or customs authority be used by GST authorities, answer is in affirmative. That's all. Thank you.
Another question which comes, Jatin bhai, for you is, after the change in the provisions of section 83 in GST, can the asset of a chartered accountant be provisionally attached?
I think the judgments also on this, that is only of the taxable person that can be attached. Secondly, 83 only deals with attachment. It should be differentiated from 79 where there is recovery. Provisionally attached is the property will remain where it is, except that the taxable person will not be permitted to use it for his own purposes, that too only for 1 year. After that, it should get vacated. Some cases it is continuing because they forgot to act on that file, but otherwise, it's only provision attachment belonging only to the taxable person and not to the chartered accountant.
But sir, just addition to this is now 122(1) capital A, which mastermind or the person who is retaining or some benefits, that has also been part of 83. So any person who is falling into that, his assets also can be now provisionally attached. Now the taxable person, it was there, but this has been added now very recently. So kindly throw some light from that perspective also, because this is a question which is being asked by many chartered accountants ki kya kal mera property be attach kar sakte hain, because they are summoned by the officers.
Right. See, to say that someone is a mastermind, it requires, it's more onerous than establishing liability under 122(1) for a taxable person. So therefore, as soon as the proceedings are initiated, section 83 becomes available. But since section 83 is to protect interests of revenue, there must be sufficient material to say that this is proceeds arising from that mischief. So I feel it is less likely that the chartered accountant should be anxious about his property coming in under 83, because it is a proceeding that will start after establishing to a reasonable degree that he is the mastermind. Because ultimately, to be a mastermind, he must retain the proceeds of that misadventure. Even if the chartered accountant, I'm sure chartered accountants are not involved in orchestrating the entire racketeering business, even if they're aware at some fringes that they were consulted to get some generic information, it would be very adventurous for the department to invoke 83 against chartered accountants, citing 122(1)A.
Now, a common question for all three panelists, which is, I think, the hottest topic as on date. And before asking this, if any queries is there of the participants, because I've been told, then you can raise those queries. In last 15 minutes, we'll take up those queries. In 15 minutes, we'll conclude our discussion, the questions that we have listed. If any queries are there, then you can either ask the queries right away, or you can note it down and send it to us. Now, the common question is, very recently what we have seen is, GST law has its own provision that there has to be an evasion of 5 crores plus to become a cognizable and non-bailable offense, then 1 crore plus that to get arrested. There are some instances wherein, barring these GST officers, under IPC the action has been taken against the taxpayer, also a chartered accountant. So the query is, first, when there is a special act in place which says that if these offences which are listed in the law itself, if these offences take place, then you will be prosecuted, the action will be taken, the show cause notice will be issued to you, it will be adjudicated, then it will be, the prosecution action also can be taken simultaneously. In spite of being a special act, what they are alleging is, now you are availing an input tax credit on an invoice which is found to be a bogus invoice, or the person is non-existent, say for example. Now, since it is a bogus invoice, they consider it to be a forged invoice, on which a document which is forged, and therefore 467 gets implicated, and they arrest the taxpayer or a chartered accountant, because there are instances where a C is also arrested, that 467 is invoked and arrest has taken place. So the first question is it legally permissible that a policeman or a economic offence cell, it is the name which is given in Gujarat, they can come forward for the same offence which is already covered in the special act and arrest a person, saying that no, your amount does not exceed 1 crore or 5 crore, it is 10,000 rupees, but since the document is forged, and we are saying that this is a GST document which is being forged, we are not going for GST actions. We will be taking actions against IPC. We will start with Jatin sir.
See, as we were discussing earlier, the action may be the same, but the cause of action may be different under different laws. This instance, Avinashji, what you mentioned, that because it is below the threshold in GST, they are taking recourse to IPC, I would sense is attempting to do what legislature did not permit one to do. The reason why limits are specified in GST law is for the very reason that below this threshold, those severity is not to be enforced. But to undo the wisdom of legislature is abuse of law. I would sense that it is abuse, and that too, if the law enforcement agency attempts this, it is a even more severe offense, severe kind of abuse of law. So I would sense that that should not be done. On another level, desperation is forcing authorities or the establishment to avail any avenue that they can. They are not able to convince legislature to give free hand, but on the other hand, they have decided that they want to go after taxpayers who are indulged in such activity, and therefore they are availing themselves all these alternate methods which are on the face of it not permitted by legislature. So therefore, taxpayers need to be vigilant to uh, to offer what I would call cautious cooperation. Cooperate with caution as to what is being done, and if you find wrongdoing, avail the remedies available in law. Don't enter into side deals and agreements and arrangements to get out of the mess that someone is throwing at the taxpayer. I would respond that way.
Tushar sir.
My view, GST is a code by itself. There are authorities which are defined under the GST Act. Those authorities alone can implement GST Act. GST being a specific act would not be covered under the provisions of IPC. Had it been the intention, then legislature, parliament could have provided for such a enabling thing, which is in favor of a police officer. They would have made the police officer as an enabling officer. In fact, if you recollect, in the prevention of acceptance of public deposit, the act which was introduced some time back, wherein a police officer, local police stations were given the specific power to implement that act. There is no such enabling provision which is available under the GST Act, and therefore, a police officer assuming jurisdiction on the ground that fake billing amounting to counterfeit billing, and therefore I have the jurisdiction under IPC because it's a crime by itself, is something which is not permissible. Under the GST Act, there is a power to arrest. Under the GST Act, there is a power to prosecute. Under the GST Act, there are definitions wherein they say that what offenses, in what manner, imprisonment is also prescribed. If all this is prescribed, and if there is no enabling provision, my view is police officer has no jurisdiction whatsoever. In fact, Delhi High Court had an occasion to deal with this. In the case of Tarun Jain versus Director General of GST Intelligence, bail appeal number 3771 of 2021, decided on November 26, 2021, while granting bail to the accused. They say that police officer cannot take the person into custody and imprison them. And there is no question of exercise of jurisdiction by anyone other than the GST authorities. And because this being a specific section, my view is that police officer has no right to intervene in the matter, and therefore if they are doing this, this can certainly be challenged in the appropriate court of law and on the ground of non-availability of jurisdiction.
Nipun sir.
I have a different view from Tushar sir. My view is that, let's say PMLA, they have a schedule of offenses. So they have around 29 different laws and different sections which have been included. So probably GST is not a scheduled offense. Income tax is also not a scheduled offense. But if, let's say I use a company to do an offense under GST, Companies Act 447 is a scheduled offense. So then company becomes an accused and PMLA can be triggered along with 447. And normally in criminal law jurisprudence, the jurisprudence is such that more than one criminal law can be made concurrently applicable. And that's possibly famous case of Lalu Yadav. He was imprisoned for more than 100 years. There's different sections of different criminal law, all imprisonment running not concurrently, one after the other. So possibly this can be one of the viewpoint that different schedule offense under which something is falling through the route, maybe not IPC, but it could be a Companies Act also. Because there are so many sections. In fact, UAPA is now one of the things which is getting attracted. And UAPA is something very vague, very general. So to allege money laundering is very easy as far as ED is concerned. And section 24, the burden of proof is entirely on the accused because they have shifted it to the accused. So I think that PMLA is more ticklish law. PMLA is putting all the burden on us, and probably we have to be very much cautious that PMLA or ED does not come into picture, probably in a case of fake billing or admission of unaccounted income. And if we go by the basic jurisprudence, black money can always be converted into white money by paying the tax and penalty. But a red money cannot be converted into white money because it has some color of some offenses against the state which cannot be made pardonable. So a smuggling cannot be made equivalent to probably an offense under tax laws. They include coffee posa, smuggling and all in this schedule offenses. But yes, that's the problem. In fact, few days I think there are news items that in fact in fake billing cases ED is summoning everybody. So probably this is going to be a challenging task for all professionals like us.
See, I would just like to add, in a fake billing case, what is so-called fake billing case, where is the laundering here? To launder, first of all, you have to start with a corpus that is not accounted. This whole racketeering begins in the air, and everything is in the books, mind you. In fact, genuine business 2A is not matching with 3B. If 2A is matching with 3B, it's only in fake billing cases, because सारा तो सामने वाले computer में हो रहा है. So therefore, I would sense that we have to identify that yes, you are right, that there are peripheral actions which come in the mischief of Companies Act, UAPA, etc., in the scheduled offences. But I would sense that ultimately in fake billing, so-called, is there laundering is a question that we need to examine, and this varies based on the facts of each case. But if you would like to please comment on this, I'd like to learn about it.
So I think what Jatin Bhai is saying, I agree, that the transaction of fake billing probably will increase black money. But the allegations what are now being raised by the ED, and I have been party to such cases, by presumption they say that this money has been used to fund some illegal activity, and which illegal activity we don't know. That will come out from the investigation. But they would allege something like prevention of corruption, some smuggling. Ultimately, that laundered money would have some origin and some destination. A small transaction may be out, but the complete change may not be out. That's my view.
Tushar sir, now after these two discussions, can we conclude that even though GST, income tax, these are not in the scheduled offences, but still the PMLA can be invoked for such offences?
PMLA, look, Supreme Court in a recent judgment of Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary has expanded the scope of PMLA. The whole idea of PMLA was that if someone commits a scheduled offense, and scheduled offense are listed along with the scheme of the act, and if the proceeds of the crime means commission of scheduled offenses, and if proceeds of crime which are illegitimate money, if they are in any manner whatsoever laundered back into the legitimate money, namely the legitimate economy, then to that extent the authorities were given the power to get hold of those assets which represent this proceeds of crime, and get hold of the people who have done this activity directly or indirectly in any manner whatsoever. Therefore, logically, anyone would think that first there has to be a commission of a prohibited offense, that is the scheduled offense. By commissioning that offense, someone must generate the money. That money, red money, as per Nipun Bhai, if I can borrow his phrase, that red money must find its place in a normal economy where the color of money is probably now pink, or pink is getting out and we are having green back. So red would become green, and once it becomes green, then the action would be taken to take out that green from the economy so that the crime proceeds cannot be allowed to be used for normal economic activities. Now Supreme Court, one of the arguments before the Supreme Court was this, that sir, first there has to be an offense, then only you can invoke PMLA. Supreme Court said no. Even the act says that it has to be for the purpose of prevention of money laundering also. The preamble to the act says that this act is not only for the purpose of finding out the proceeds of crime, but also prevention of money laundering. And therefore prevention presupposes that even if there is no exact finding, then also authorities can investigate in a particular circumstances. Then comes the question that without finding out what is the proceeds of crime, if we give jurisdiction to the PMLA authority, they will enter anybody's premises and they'll say that, all right, we want to examine. If you are innocent, there will not be any proceeds of crime. And if we find something, then we'll invoke PMLA and put you behind the bars. Whether that is permissible. Supreme Court said that even under such a circumstances, you cannot not allow the ED authorities, you cannot prevent the ED authorities in accessing the premises in a given circumstances if they find something, some illegality. Let's say if they find cash. Now cash is generated by not paying legitimate taxes, income tax. Let's say people like me, I have accepted some cash in the form of a professional fee and that money is lying. I have yet to incorporate that money into my regular books of accounts. PMLA comes to my home and they say that we find 10 lakhs of rupees. Admittedly, this is not a proceeds of crime. However, they would inform the income tax department and tell them that, sir, this is a 10 lakhs rupees where the income tax is not paying, come and get hold of that money. That is the law which is laid down now by the Supreme Court. Therefore, when we argue that, sir, GST and income tax are not scheduled offense and therefore PMLA authorities will not have the jurisdiction, it's something which is staring in the face of this judgment. This judgment says that, sir, we don't even have to find out whether it's a scheduled offense or no. If ED says that we smell some blood over here, they will enter the premises and they'll start the investigation. Therefore, the question is whether ED has the jurisdiction. Answer is yes, ED has the jurisdiction. But if you ask me as an academician that whether a PMLA law can be invoked against breach of Income Tax Act and GST Act, even if it has resulted into generation of some cash money in the hands of a particular SSE, my answer is empathetic no. It cannot be done because the whole substance of PMLA is scheduled offense. And where is the scheduled offense? However, after the judgment of the Supreme Court, probably they will board the train and they will say that, sir, these are the crimes. And as Nipun Bhai has said, that we will attach this crime either with IPC or with any other scheduled offense, and we'll assume jurisdiction and we'll start investigating the issue. Nobody can prevent them because our judiciary has failed in protecting the rights of the citizens. Therefore, we have nowhere to go. Today, we have a judgment of the Supreme Court which gives this unbridled power to the ED, and therefore there is no question of we debating that whether they can do this or no, because today they have the power to enter your premises and inquire all your affairs, whether you have committed a crime with this, which is not a scheduled offense, then also they get the jurisdiction.
So in short, sir, can it be said that the officers or the authorities only read powers they have, but when to invoke those powers, they don't read that?
Absolutely. That is, in fact, in India, we suffer from that people, the persons who are in the position of power, they do not know when to use their power. We all know that powers are there. In fact, we have some of the best laws. However, when it comes to implementing those laws, we have some of the worst implementers. The administrators of our laws are, the presumption is that laws are made keeping in mind a presumption that everyone who is implementing these laws, number one, they are honest. Number two, every action of theirs is a bona fide one. Now here, both these presumptions fail in real world. And therefore, dangerous laws given in the hands of bad administrator, and we have serious consequences. And courts have simply raised their hands. From the entire ED PMLA saga, courts have simply raised their hand. They are not supporting any SSEs. Therefore, if I can borrow the predecessor speaker's word, Hari, Kapil Bhai Goyal, he would say that Bhagwan bachaya aapko.
Now, last question, because what should be the precaution and the preparedness for a chartered accountant while he is facing any sort of inquiry, any inquiry? This is the conclusive, because this was the topic. So therefore, we need to add our value or what wisdom we have, experience we have, so far as the preparedness for facing any inquiry is concerned, because our client may run away, because we cannot run away. So we'll have to face all those inquiries also. How to face that, how to be prepared for that, and what is the best way to handle such kind of inquiries? Jatin sir, will start with you.
I start by citing one instance. There's a chartered accountant who had got a notice for one of his clients. The answer, on a conference call, the client said, I am exempt from GST. Why do you think you are exempt from GST? Because I am a doctor. I am a doctor, so I am exempt from GST. So I asked him the question, but then you have got income from renting commercial property. But I am a doctor, I am exempt from GST. Friends, please be very careful. Whenever any question is posed, my short guidance to share for members to consider is question the question before you answer the question. We are so used to giving answers that we fail to question whether that question itself has assumptions in them, conjecture in them, something that is merely a suspicion that through the reply they are getting more information than what they started off with. So please respond as a responsible citizen of society, as a professional in our society who are highly respected. Respond to all questions, but first satisfy yourself that that question is complete and you understand the question completely before you start offering your answers.
Tushar sir.
My only advice is that we are all seasoned chartered accountants. Over a period of time, something known as professional instinct. We develop this professional instinct over a period of time. We all have it. Some has very active professional instinct, some have probably a passive professional instinct, but we all have professional instinct. My only advice is respect your professional instinct. You are better equipped than anyone else in recognizing what are the wrongdoings of your clients. You see the books of accounts, you meet the client, and you know for sure that that client of yours, how innocent or guilty that person is. The moment you sense guilt, start taking precaution. Then stop treating that person as your friend. He is only a client. He is your professional client, and treat him as such. The moment you treat him as a client, you will maintain 1 arm's distance. Number 2, you will start maintaining the documents, the record. Supposing if someone asks you to plan a particular structure a particular business affair in such a way so as to minimize the GST incident or so as to minimize the income tax incident. Start maintaining the record of that. Tell your client to first send you the email requesting that they want a particular structure so as to maximize the GST savings, so as to put in place a particular tax efficient system, a tax efficient planning. Once you start doing that, you start maintaining all the records which is generated subsequently. And all this would help you eventually in avoiding any unpleasant situation whatsoever. And therefore, once again I repeat, the suggestion is accept whenever your professional instinct tells you something, go with that instinct, believe that. Once you start believing that, everything else will fall in place, because then you know the danger which is there and it is going to come, and you will start taking the precautions so as to save yourself from any unpleasant situation.
Nipun bhai.
Tushar bhai has already said that we are all aware about our instincts, and I go by it. And we almost everybody, whenever we interact with the client, we come to know how smart he is, how clever he is, how good he is, how bad he is. All these things are, we get to know professional skepticism. But if somebody wants to do something wrong, he will definitely do it. And we might be facing this issue. My suggestion is, and in fact our institute standards are so good, nobody reads the auditing standards. Everybody reads accounting standards. But I tell you, if somebody of you must have done peer review audit, or somebody has faced quality review, and I have been a part of the institute's this committee where these things have been captured in the audit working paper. And it clearly says that suppose somebody is looking at your client, please change that person at least after 2 years in your office itself. So that is very important that skepticism is maintained, because sometimes out of our familiarity, out of our relation, we ignore something, and that causes trouble. because everything cannot be on paper. But some things we will come to know when we observe amongst the client, amongst our office, amongst our team, amongst our staff. So I think this is very important. As far as these all laws are concerned, like PMLA, GST, fake billing, nowadays there is an apprehension, and I already suggested in beginning, whenever you feel that any of your client even has got a summon or a notice, maybe he was part of one chain of purchase or sale, and you have come to know that yes, this client has got some notices, or he is part of maybe any this circle trade, then you just make sure you get all the information pertaining to that client updated in your office, because any time any notice or someone might be coming to you. It is better to be alert rather than wait for something to come and then say we do not have documents, because that is going to be a very big professional hazard rather than not preparing ourselves, because ultimately we will have to face all these situations if we are handling big clients. In fact, I was reading this FEB circular. This PMLA, we have been included in May, but the FEB circular says that if this RBI has given a definition of politically exposed persons. And if you read that definition of politically exposed person, I think any of our client would be included. Because they say even a person who is a senior member in any political party or a member is also included. So we will definitely have somebody, and we know how ED is working, everybody is aware. And as sir rightly said, even an apprehension like that liquor policy case, and I was, my friend only did that liquor policy case of Delhi government, I was just reading it. It's only an allegation, till now nothing has been proved. Sometimes the 10,000 crore, sometimes 1,000 crore, sometimes 100 crore fraud they are saying. Nowhere the policy was made, nowhere the policy was implemented. Even on suspect, even a cabinet rank politician can be inside jail, and we are nothing. So we should also now maintain a contingency fund for litigation, and that is very important. So please all increase your fee at least to the extent of 10%. If your clients are really good, they are paying, and probably such type of litigation can come, I suggest that at least 10% of the fee we should increase and keep it aside for such type of contingencies.
So before I invite the questions from the participants, one line from each one of you. Is there anything for a chartered accountant as on the current times to worry? Or is there anything which he should 100% take care of?
One line. Definitely the times are not like what it used to be. Be alert, be alert, be alert.
My one line is again, go with your professional instincts and respect them, don't ignore them.
And if there is something, we all three are here, along with Podarji. That is the best part, that we can always interact with our professionals who are already into legal side. And we probably, not perfectly, but probably understand law better than a practicing chartered accountant, because normally a chartered accountant will not see this criminal prosecution or the other side which happens in the court. So it is always better to communicate with people who are already doing this work, so that we come to know what worst can happen. We already are aware what best can happen, but at least we should be aware what worst can happen.
Now, if any questions are there, yes.
That the transactions are really carried out by these gentlemen who has abused my documents, and the transactions are actually carried out by him only. Still the department fixes the liabilities on that peon or watchman having no worth. How can that peon or watchman can come out of these liabilities? What are the documentary evidences or what he can submit for that? That is first. Second is, Supreme Court has granted general exclusion from time limit for the corona period, specified corona period. So suppose the department today starts any reassessment or revision proceedings which are otherwise time barred. But by exclusion of that corona period, can it can get saved. So whether that Supreme Court judgment will grants exclusion for judicial and judicial and quasi-judicial proceedings. So whether that revision and reassessment proceedings will be quasi-judicial proceedings? Thank you.
Insofar as, let me take the last thing first. Insofar as limitation is concerned, if that limitation is covered under the TOLA Act, and that TOLA Act had a general extension clause wherein limitation of large number of income tax sections were extended. Extension was up to 31st March 2021, right from 20th March 2020. If it was the due date was falling within this, then answer is yes. But when you are calculating the limitation, let's say the action is required to be done within a period of 2 years. And if you ask that, sir, can I remove 1 year from this 2020 to 21? And thereafter, that's how I extend the time limit from 2023 to 2024. Their answer is no. It was, the TOLA said very specifically that anything which was getting time barred during that period gets extended. It's not that that period does not exist in the eye of law and that is required to be ignored for calculating the limitation period. Therefore, to that extent, limitation, if at all it is falling within TOLA period, yes, it gets automatically extended up to 31st March 2021. However, today if someone issues a notice and tells you that kindly ignore this period and that's how it is falling within time, then you can certainly challenge that. As regards your first query, that what should those watchmen and they must go back to their home village. Because today they don't have any material available. Look, they are taken for a ride. Department knows it, but probably they use that information for some other purposes. And therefore, unless the department wants to really go after the right person, these gentlemen have no way of telling them, look, their PAN card or their Aadhaar card, either with their notice and they are given a paltry sum so as to compensate them, or without their notice are being used. Other than that, they would not have any information whatsoever. So in the end, what they can do is they can litigate this. They can ask the authorities that how the transactions are carried out, who are the persons who was handling the bank account, who was handling the business, who has signed the invoices, who was running the offices, who was interacting with his customers, namely the purchasers and the sellers. All this information can be collected, can be presented before the authority so as to plead it. But looking to the financial disability of the persons involved, probably the best course for them is go back to their home village and enjoy life there.
Yes, sir.
I have also two questions to Imani, sir. Sir, first question is regarding the cross-examination. I have requested for the cross-examination of the persons whose statements have been relied on. But in the assessment order, the assessing officer has denied the cross-examination on the certain judicial pronouns like chuharmal, and they are referring some evidence act and all like that. So what is the settled legal position of cross-examination? This is my first question.
Look, you should be happy. In cross-examination, it's a wooden sword. It's only for the purpose of showing that you have the sword. When it comes to actual fighting, more often than not, cross-examination backfires. Therefore, you should be happy that there is no cross-examination. Now, you can use this at a later stage, that in absence of there being any cross-examination, either the department's entire case fails, number one, because this is an illegality according to us, and this illegality it goes to the root of the matter, order is required to be quashed. Assuming that that is not the case, then whatever are the evidences which are flowing from this deponent, supposing bogus billing transaction, the main key person has allegedly given some statement before the departmental authority whom you wanted to cross-examine, then that statement goes outside the purview of the evidences. So also the material which is given by that person to the department to establish the bogus billing. So that material and a statement would be outside the evidences. That would not be used, cannot be used against you. So therefore, whatever that you have submitted would survive, and the evidences against you would disappear. And therefore, you can plead your case better probably at a future date, saying that there is a gross violations of principles of natural justice, and you may succeed at a later stage. For all
Thank
we
you.
know.
Now, second question is, sir, so far as alleged accommodation entries are concerned, what is the settled legal position regarding proving the changing case hand, that is the case trail by the department? Is there any
Cash. There is a judgment of Gujarat High Court, MK Brothers, old judgment, bogus purchase case, probably 160 some ITR, wherein the Gujarat High Court has observed that in case of a allegation of a bogus purchase, you also must establish the movement of cash. So unless in absence of that, you cannot make this allegation that there was any accommodation entry. However, that was long back. Much water has thereafter flown under the bridge. Today, as the law stands, most of the tribunals are not accepting this argument. They say that accommodation entry, if someone has given a statement that I have not entered into a single legitimate transaction, all my transactions are bogus transactions. I have all the while issued accommodation entries in the nature of bogus bills, bogus capital gains, bogus loans, bogus share capital, so on and so forth. All these transactions, one leg is necessarily settled in cash. I do not have any proof, but ultimately department will find out who is the beneficiary. Supposing you have received some share capital in your books of accounts, then the presumption is against you, because who has yielded the fruits of this exercise? It's not provider. It's you who is ultimately using the capital which has come into your. Now to say that, sir, he may be lying or he may be giving accommodation entry to the world at large, but with me he was bona fide and straightforward and he has given me genuine entry, would be staring against the evidences on record. Therefore, even if, assuming for a moment that there is no establishment of cash movement, that he has given you back you the cash or you have given the cash to that person, probably it is going to be difficult, if at all, you have already enjoyed the fruits of that accommodation entry. So you'll have to look at it from that angle, look at the latest judicial trend. Most of the judgments are against the SSC, wherein they confirm the accommodation entry editions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, one small question. So far as penny stock is concerned,
Yes.
the department has no evidence except market analysis, ups and downs.
Right.
No other evidence. No statement, no survey, no search, nothing. What will be the future?
Have you purchased it on the floor of the stock market?
Everything online.
Okay. And with a non-reputed dealer who is not
Yeah.
been, who has never
Yeah.
been searched or something.
Recognized stock exchange, recognized stock broker, everything.
Okay.
Demat account, everything.
Then probably you can argue that this is a legitimate transaction, because the argument is that if stock exchange has not suspended the transactions, if the authorities have not doubted it, merely because the stock in which you have traded happens to be a company of no means, you have only speculated. You invested in a company's share knowing fully well that this may be worthless company, but it was a speculative transaction. You gained something out of it. In absence of there being any other evidences, probably you can succeed. We have large number of tax appeals which are dismissed by the High Court, filed by the department against the tribunal judgments, wherein this view is accepted. That in absence of there being any connection, any nexus with the entry provider or operator of a penny stock, there is no question of confirming any addition in your hand.
Including Gujarat Jurisdictional High Court.
Yes, Gujarat High Court also.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The question is regarding GST. There has been survey and summons issued under section 70. Statement also recorded. Bank account also seized. Then after, by creating some pressure, they don't allow to do the business and not allowed to file the GSTR1, not allowed to file the GSTR3B. So business gets stuck up. And they pressurize so much that client is ready to pay through the DRC03. Now first question is that they don't allow to pay through the ITC ledger. They compulsory required to pay from the cash ledger. Though I have a very good balance of ITC. Second, they are not releasing the bank account. So everything gets stuck up. Third, they, once the client pay through the DRC 03, they are not accepting through DRC 04 and not ordering through DRC 05. So the whole system gets stuck up. Now what are the remedies available to get out of this?
Show cause notice issued or not issued?
Show cause not issued.
Not issued. Very good. File refund application. Please cooperate fully. No, I'm telling you, please cooperate fully. Get your business back in track. File refund application. There is no basis for rejecting that refund. Cooperate fully because you are under such extenuating circumstances. Like you said, you have no choice but to do whatever you are told to do. Get your business back in track. Bank account released. Portal is working. Login is working. All blocked trades are unblocked. You have 2 years time. Wait for a few months. File refund application. Ensure that you get RFD 2. Little talent is required for that. Please get RFD 2. Your money is safe. One day you will get your money back. Then contact Avinash ji. No, really. See, nobody below High Court will ever take any decision in your favor. So please contact Avinash ji. Simple. See, be very objective. Taxpayers, chartered accountants especially, experience pain and suffering of their clients. Chartered accountants are developed BP, sugar, lost sleep. Client is gone to Munnar, Kodaikanal. You understand? Be objective. Like sir was rightly saying, trust your instincts. This is only an assignment. This is only a client. So therefore, then you will think more clearly without the confusion of the pain and suffering that the client will enjoy all the pain and suffering. You just make sure that you have arranged the sequence of steps in your mind. Cooperate because you have no choice. File refund application. Contact Avinash. Because if a show cause notice is not even issued, then you know that there is nothing that survives in that. Most likely that was a roving inquiry. They stumbled upon something, so they have achieved their monthly targets. There will be nothing by way of reasons to believe. You have enough safeguards in the law. In practice, it may be denied to you. In the law, it is there. At the right time, you have the right person in Surat to ask the right questions in the right forum. Sir, you don't bother about what they have to do. Why are you worried about what they have to do? What you have to do? Even if DRC 4 or 5 has come, there can be no liability to tax without incidence of tax. There has to be an incidence. Without 9, there is no 79. So therefore, do whatever is required. File refund application. Reasons for refund, payment under mistake. मिस्टेक तो सबके कैपेबिलिटी, बैंगलोर में कम कैपेबिलिटी है, ज़्यादा कैपेबिलिटी है, सूरत में कम होगा, लेकिन सब अपने अपने कैपेबिलिटी के हिसाब से मिस्टेक कर सकते हैं. मिस्टेक से जमा हो गया. Now you go and claim refund. Let them adjudicate RFD 8, RFD 9, RFD 6, adjudication, APL 1, 5, लंबा है बस. Right person here.
Sir, my question is, what can be the course of action in case taxpayer is denied refund of GST cess in case goods which are not chargeable to GST cess are exported after paying IGST and not under LUT?
Goods are not liable to cess. Are exported.
After paying IGST.
Executive action. We have to await executive action for them to redress this, because this is a industry-wide, nation-wide issue that hasn't been addressed.
Sir, there is no Supreme Court judgment or High Court judgment regarding.
Just now, sir was explaining about Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary. Sometimes judgments are dangerous. You should be happy you don't have a judgment on this. You will get executive action. You know, nowadays this trend is going on. Now, July 11th, you will have one trend. On as-is basis for the removal of litigation, one circular will come out. No parliament, no court, nothing. As-is basis, it is resolved. So something might come up.
Sir, GST officer has quoted circular CBIC circular 45/19/2018.
No, you have to wait for executive action. He's welcome to quote anything that he likes. You have no other remedy. You have to only ensure that you are not hit by limitation, see what needs to be done about it, but otherwise there's no remedy in the law as it stands today.
Thank you, sir.
सर पीएमएलए के अंदर आपने कोई कंपनी इंकॉर्पोरेट की है और उसके लिए कोई इन्वेस्टिगेशन होता है बाद में, आपने कुछ भी नहीं किया है, तो क्या वो ऑडिटर जो इंकॉर्पोरेटर है उससे क्लाइंट ले सकते हैं कि आपके कौन कौन से क्लाइंट्स हैं, आपके पास क्या एसेट्स है, खाली इनकॉर्पोरेट करने पे ही?
सिर्फ इनकॉर्पोरेट ही की है आपने, तो आपने बेसिकली डिक्लेरेशन दिया होगा सेक्शन 7 का कंपनीज एक्ट, करेक्ट? तो केवल उस कंपनी के रिगार्डिंग आपसे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, डिटेल्स, केवाईसी मांग सकते हैं, नॉट विद रिगार्ड टू एनी अदर क्लाइंट्स.
They are asking major list of your major clients.
Not required to be given. You can contest. You can say no. Failure to say no, penalty ज़्यादा नहीं है, 10,000 ही है. Even if they go to court, they cannot go beyond that. And you are only required to give them qua the client which they are investigating. And there are judgments on this that the notice has to be restricted and specific to what they are asking, to which SSC they are asking. So they cannot do it blanketly.
And further सर अगर उन्होंने समन किया है और आप गए उन्होंने
चाइनीज का केस तो नहीं है, हैं? चाइनीज कंपनी का केस तो नहीं है, हाँ, because उसमें क्या है कि there is a list of companies which is given to the ROC as well as to the ED.
ये इंडियन कंपनी है.
और one of the case I also know in Surat, so इसलिए उसमें अगर Chinese investment है and you are being an advisor to many Chinese companies, so they are asking you on the basis of that list. Otherwise, roving inquiry is not permitted.
नहीं, और समन डेट पे आप गए और उन्होंने आपसे स्टेटमेंट नहीं लिया, रिटर्न कर दिया आपको. टुडे वी आर बिजी, विल नॉट टेक एनी स्टेटमेंट टुडे, विल कॉल यू आफ्टर 5-7 days, देन यू कम. तो डू यू एनी एक्शन फॉर दैट? दे आर नॉट रिकॉर्डेड और एंट्री एट देयर.
Please put it in writing. Please put it in writing that you came on so and so date, so and so time, so and so officer said he is not available. Please put it in writing. तो वहाँ पे नीचे invert register उसमें invert भी
they are not allowed it. They are not allowed to submit the submission at all there.
No problem. Then you send it by speed post and keep a track of it that it is delivered. It happens many a times, and especially in ED office it will happen. They will call you, either they will make you sit outside on the bench. They will not allow you to carry your mobile. If you go with the advocate also, they will ask the advocate also to sit outside. So these all things are very normal. Don't worry, if your submissions are to be done, please file it. If they are allowing you to put it in the invert register, please get an acknowledgement. If they are not permitting you that also, send it by speed post and keep a proof.
Just consider, just about this point, if I may add, when they make you wait for 5 hours, don't think it is not purposeful. Tomorrow when you say that a statement was recorded after 5 hours, you are under tension, under anxiety, under worry, and you have made wrong statements, your own statement will be used against you, saying you 5 hours you waited. If 5 hours also your anxiety did not come down, your BP should have crossed 250. It has to, because your BP was high at 11 o'clock, they made you wait till 3 o'clock before your statement was recorded. So please, everything is deliberate. Don't assume anything is accidental. Measure your steps and then take the next step.
And one more thing, as Jatin sir has already said that in earlier deliberation, that everything that has been asked for need not be replied back, unless he has jurisdiction to ask that. That needs to be kept in mind.
Thank you.
I think that will help us. Over to you.
Hello. Good evening to all of you. Before proposing vote of thanks, I must say that it is proud moment.